And take questions and all. So, welcome, Streamium folks. So,
hi guys, my name is Damian. He's Esteban. He's the one who's giving the talk today. Basically, Streamium is an open source project for streaming live video and getting paid in real time using a new protocol in Bitcoin called payment channels. Esteban is going to talk about. Yeah. We can set up the stream.
Sure. Yeah. So, this is Esteban Ordano with Streamium, streamium.io.
Thanks everybody, thanks Blockchain University for having us. Today I'm going to show Streamium, peer-to-peer video service where you can get paid by the second with the implementation of payment channels, which is also a smart contract on top of Bitcoin. And actually it's funny that it was also created by Mike Hearn. Well, at least first described it by him in the Bitcoin wiki. A first intro about me, I'm a software developer. First started to dive deep into Bitcoin by the end of 2012. I was living in New York at that time. A couple of years before, I saw this idea with the WikiLeaks acceptance of Bitcoin, and I thought it would be a good idea, but didn't dive deep into it too deep. I've been working on BitPay's open source team. There I mostly on Bitcore, the JavaScript library, also on Insight and Copay. We started Streamium with 6 other developers back in November. And we wanted to show this payment channel implementation that we had because there weren't many projects being built on this, and we thought it was a very cool idea and started to look into possible applications for it. Streamium is completely open source. It runs in the browser, it needs no installation, and we also try to have the user experience be as seamless as possible. If you want to earn Bitcoins, you can just put in a Bitcoin address there and start receiving your Bitcoins. Also, there is Manuel, also a developer at Bitcoin, at Streamium. We work together in BitPay. He's also the creator of Proof of Existence, which is, I think, the first notary service on the blockchain. So this is the homepage for Streamium. You, as I said, you just select a stream name, a cash out address, and how much do you want to pay per second. This is actually set in Bitcoins, but we're using a exchange rate from BitPay provider that provides us the current exchange rate. So I already mentioned that it uses the payment channel mechanism, and I'm going to go into some detail into that later. It also uses WebRTC, which is a peer-to-peer way of establishing a communication channel. We're using that both to stream the video and to set up the protocol for the payment channel. It's a trustless solution. You don't need to have any intermediary in the middle like Visa. So what a payment channel is actually is similar to opening a tab at a bar. You set a certain amount of money to be locked into that payment channel, and then you start taking out small amounts. You can make each microtransaction be as little as 1 Satoshi, and you can build other things, not only video or time-based charge per Bitcoin. The Streamium is also kind of like a built-in wallet into the web page, as Lighthouse is. When you're sending Bitcoin into the address that you see when trying to join a stream, you're actually funding this payment channel. This is the user interface for the client side of when you're going to watch a video. You just send a bunch of Bitcoin here, click on showing the stream, and then you're already set. Alright, so I'm going to go into how payment channel works, how are we using WebRTC, why do we have a need for blockchain APIs for some of the functionality, and some future aspects of how is streaming going to evolve. So, payment channels is similar to opening a bar tab. It's a 2-of-2 multi-sig escrow service between the service provider and the service client. I'm going to call them a provider and client, or provider and consumer in this presentation. So the first step to building a payment channel is to lock the funds in a transaction, sending the maximum amount that you are going to spend in that payment channel to a 2-out-of-2 address. But you are not going to broadcast this transaction because in case the server doesn't the server may deny to sign this any transaction spending these funds. So first you ask him for a refund transaction, which is going to be end lock time. End lock time, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the concept, but it essentially renders a transaction invalid until some point in the future. So once I have a refund transaction signed by the server, which allows me to provide another signature to retrieve my funds, but not for the next 24 hours, week, a month, or whatever, I'm ready to broadcast the commit transaction to the blockchain. So the server is going to see this commitment transaction in the blockchain. He can wait for as many confirmations as he wants. Once it's settled in the blockchain, the server is pretty confident that these funds, the 2-out-of-2, the ones stored in this 2-out-of-2 address, are going to be spent only if we are both in agreement on how to spend those funds. So what the client or the consumer is going to do is start crafting payment transactions. Most of these transactions will never get into the blockchain, but it serves as some kind of like signing checks that you will never cash. These payment transactions spend all the funds that were initially sent to the commitment transaction minus the miner fee. And what we're going to see is a series of transactions where each transaction, this transaction has two outputs, one back to the user and one to the server. And what we're going to see is the amount of satoshis sent to the user decrease with time, and the amount of satoshis sent to the server increase with time as the payment channel, as seconds are charged. So this is the whole schema. First you set up a commitment transaction, you ask the server to give you a refund transaction signed that is not going to be valid until tomorrow, and then you can start paying the server with these payment transactions. Before we go any further, is this kind of clear? Do you have any questions regarding payment channels? Yes?
On the refund transaction, before tomorrow at some point, couldn't they spend the money, Bitcoins elsewhere, so then when you try to cash the refund, it doesn't work anymore?
Well, if the server, so the refund transaction spends this,
Well, for the 202.
from the 202.
Okay, cool.
So you will have to have the
Yeah,
server
yeah,
and the
yeah.
client on board to spend them.
Okay.
Yes.
So you're not charging in real time, right? So the customer has to commit some amount of money to be spent. And you cannot charge more than that. And you cannot charge less than that.
That's right.
So you only charge after the broadcast is completed.
Yeah, there
So
are
if
only.
someone stops in the middle.
If you stop in the middle, well, what happens in Streamium is that the client is all the time signing transactions and sending them to the server. But the server sees these transactions and he doesn't broadcast them to the network. He's just sure that he already received the signature that pays as much as they negotiated at the beginning to himself. So he has this partially signed transaction, this payment transaction, partially signed by the user. He just adds his signature and then he can end the channel at any time. So in streaming, the way this works is that if the server stops seeing any transactions coming his way, or if the amounts are invalid, or the server or the client isn't paying enough money, he will just end the stream and broadcast the transaction, and the contract is over.
Okay, so just to clarify, so if I committed like 10 Bitcoin for the broadcast, and suddenly I do not have any Bitcoin left, so the server disconnects me from the broadcast, right?
Yeah.
At what point?
Sorry?
At what point?
At what point?
Yeah.
Well, either when
Yeah,
they,
because you still need time to broadcast the transaction to tell the server that I do not have money, right?
well, sorry, I'm not quite, I don't.
And probably take it.
The, all right. Yeah, the server can broadcast the last payment transaction he got at any time. He surely will broadcast that before the refund transaction is released from the lock time. So, because then the user will receive all the funds back.
Okay, just last question for me to fully understand it. So funds are not locked until the broadcast is done, right?
There are two transactions broadcast. The first one, the commitment transaction. Once this is broadcast, the funds are locked.
Locked.
Yeah.
So you put them
You
on
cannot spend those 10 bitcoins at with any other transaction.
Okay. So and I have to commit some funds before
Yeah.
the okay. Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But
It's
you
like-
won't actually commit those funds until you've seen the countersigned refund and lock time refund transaction.
Exactly.
So your money's never.
Yeah, and it's like a safe lock transaction that you can. We're all actually working on a small server that will store refund transactions and will relay them when the time comes. So you don't have to. Right now, how it works in Streamium is that you have to open Streamium again, and if enough time has passed, and the server did not relay the last payment transaction you sent, we will relay the refund transaction, and you will get your funds back.
Is there a max or min on that end of time piece of it? In terms of like is there a maximum time that you can end the transaction, or is there or theory and practice?
Yeah, you will set that refund transaction to any time that you want. 24 hours is kind of like a balance between having your funds back in a reasonable amount of time, but also so the service that is being provided will have to be fully provided at least 2 hours before that time, because otherwise you may have a conflict of transactions being trying to be included in the blockchain. So does that?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Any more questions? All right. So there was actually an implementation of payment channels back in August 2013, I think, by Mike Herm and Matt Corrado, I think. On Bitcoin Shade, it's best library for Bitcoin in Java, definitely. We built a custom implementation on JavaScript because we wanted to do this without an install and try this concept. With streaming, we are trying to push some ways that you can earn bitcoins without having to buy them. So we think it's going to be a pretty cool use case. Maybe will drive a little more mainstream adoption. So the whole website of Streamium is a static web page. We don't have any much costs of operation. Actually, it's Amazon Web Services S3 instance, micro instance. Peak usage has been 2% or something like that. We do need a rendezvous server so the browsers can meet. We don't have we are decentralized. You could fork Streamium and it will work as long as you're using the same rendezvous server. We don't have any listing of current Streamiums. We decided, as with Lighthouse, we have a similar model that you should publish your project or your stream on your social networks or on your servers or via email, a decentralized way to get other people to use your project. And it's cool that WebRTC is being pushed by browser vendors because it makes a lot of sense for video solutions. Like, and I think this started with Hangouts trying not to be a plugin. Right now there's support for it in Firefox and Chrome. Streaming works on Chrome for Android and iOS. Safari still hasn't implemented this, but as it's already implemented in Chrome, which uses WebKit, use WebKit, it's probably easy enough to add it to Safari, and also Internet Explorer is going to include it in the next version once it's out there. So how do we get information about whether the transactions have been relayed or verifying if the logs?
Just a question back to what you just said. So,
Yeah.
I'm looking at your site right now. So, the way it works is, if I do a stream with you on a peer-to-peer basis, that stream, first of all, doesn't exist anywhere else, right? And then, I guess there's no sort of cataloging of types of streams. I'm just kind of curious, do you think that you could get more application if you offered a taxonomy around the types of streams, even if you're not going to actually show the streams themselves?
Yeah, there are a bunch of services that already did that for us. We didn't have, as this was our hackathon project, we didn't want to have to be DMCA compliant. What if somebody is going to stream copyrighted material or some kind of other abuses of the service? With the way the service works right now, we have no way to enforce those things.
Right.
But the community has already built 2 or 3 directory services around this. So if you go to streamium.directory, I think there's a listing of some streams that are currently being used. There's also a subreddit, which we didn't start. Streamium Live is the name of the subreddit. So we're seeing a lot of community being built up around this, and we think it was the hackathon project was a success because of that. So as I was mentioning, we need some source of information about what's the current state of the blockchain, and we are currently using Blockstream because there's right now no SPV wallet implementation of Bitcoin. I think it will be cool to have an SPV client on the browser. What we are doing right now, we don't wait for confirmations in the blockchain because we're using the confidence factor from BlockCypher. BlockCypher provides us with that service. Once we reach high enough confidence that this is going to be included into a block, we just check for double spends after that, but we start streaming the video. In the worst case scenario, a double spend is detected or a block double spends those funds, and well, a couple of seconds of video were sent for free, but it's not a big.
Have you run into this issue at all? I mean,
No.
has anybody able to?
No.
No.
One of the things that we are trying to do is build a WebRTC SPV client. There's a project called WebTorrent, which has some relay nodes that both connect to the Bitcoin, to the BitTorrent network and to the browsers, and then relays information through them. And also browser clients can connect directly with WebRTC. We think that it would be cool to have also a Bitcoin SPV browser overlay of the network. It's going to be quite hard because some Eclipse attacks like these relay nodes could hide information from you, but it's something that is solvable. To finish up and wrap up, I'm going to discuss some future things about streaming. Last Thursday, I think, a patch was accepted into Bitcoin, which adds a new command to the Bitcoin scripting language, which is called check log time verify. This is a very cool improvement to the Bitcoin scripting language. It's going to allow us to fix some issues that we had with transaction malleability, which we have right now. Essentially, you could modify the commitment transaction and the refund transaction will not be valid, so the server could hold your funds hostage. But that's going to change as soon as check log time verify is merged and in use, which by the end of the year it's going to definitely be pushed. So who here knows something about the scripting language? All right. So if we use this is not actually, this is some kind of like it's not Bitcoin scripting language, but what we're going to have with check log time verify is we will not have the refund transaction workaround, because we can code that directly into the script. So this is actually a smart contract in the sense of Ethereum, because you will be sending funds to this script, and you could get your funds out after 24 hours without requiring the server to sign you a transaction. And if time hasn't passed yet, you have the normal multi-sig 2 of 2 script. We would like to see wallet support for payment channels, where you could have your funds, where you could have less friction to set up a payment channel. Imagine right now you have to scan that code and send funds there to start the payment channel. Well, we would like that to be just one transaction. Right now we are using 2 transactions to that.
Which wallet do you see most users using today? Do you guys have a point of view? Is it Coinbase? Is it Circle? Is it?
We don't have any way to look at that. But there is actually a wallet that is called Hourglass, Hourglass. It's a project by Mike Herm to have a wallet with payment channels. It's actually funded on Lighthouse, at least the first stage, which is design of the app and the protocol. And we're also looking into some other ways to use this payment channel, paying by a Satoshi. Well, payment channels is also the technology behind the Lightning Network, with some improvements on top of what I just showed. But we think that this could help ease the frictions on setting up a contract between two entities. And we are very positive about future uses of payment channels in other areas that are not just live streaming of video. So, any other questions that you would like to ask? Yes?
So when you're doing a stream, and I'm watching the stream, I'm connecting straight.
Yeah.
Right, there's no server. So that's fine if it's just like a couple of us.
Yeah.
If there are like 20, 30 people watching the stream, does that computer need to be doing the 30 times bandwidth?
You will need a lot of upstream bandwidth.
Okay.
And actually we're thinking on maybe creating to provide a service of multiplying your bandwidth. You will just send us the video to us and we will redistribute that video to other people. That's a possible solution for this.
Blockstream has that micropayments sidechain project that they're doing. Have Blockstream,
Yeah.
right? So they have. So I was talking with them the other day. Is your perspective that have you guys talked to them about that, and are you guys integrating with that? Okay,
No,
never mind. That's a different question.
Cool, so thanks a lot for listening to our talk. Please keep in touch, and any questions or follow-ups that you would like to send us, these are our Twitters, the guys that are around here.
Sorry to ask so many questions. This is awesome
No,
stuff.
please.
In terms of how you price out the amount of Bitcoin per second,
Yeah.
what is that methodology? I mean, how do you come up with 1 versus 2 versus 5, like the cost structure? How do you guys do that?
We just leave that to the user.
Yeah, it's up to the broadcaster. to
Yeah.
decide.
Yeah, it's up to the broadcaster.
They just, okay.
Yeah, on the
Yeah,
site,
if
you
you-
see, start a stream, you can
Okay, I see.
you go to the streaming website.
Here,
Yeah.
it's just an input you can put in there, $1 per hour. We decided on dollars per hour because I don't know how much money is 6,000 satoshis per second.
Okay.
Have you thought about maybe even keep it truly decentralized and to overcome the bandwidth issue? Maybe having IPFS?
That's what I was in the,
Yeah.
And just
That
dump
would be
the-
cool.
yeah, so you're not delivering it 20 times just once.
Yeah. And then one last thing, it just occurred to me that because everyone on Reddit just went crazy for this. It was just exploded, and I thought, Bitcoin's really looking for that breakout app that everyone goes, go down to a local shelter, put a computer on a cat or cats, and then have that shelter put that Streamium account on their website,
Yeah.
and here you are donating to your local shelter, and people are like, well, maybe I should get Bitcoin.
Yeah.
That's cool because not only you're paying, but you're also donating to the shelter.
And you're getting people who probably would otherwise maybe not get a Bitcoin address
Someone
or,
can set up at a shelter.
or
Yeah.
Nice.